Very interesting. Oh, wait a minute. There's a new Scream movie. Okay, let's talk about that instead. I said I didn't have a good excuse on why I shouldn't probably go see the new Scream movie, since coming up with good excuses is hard. But I was willing to see how long they last before they wouldn't work anymore, because I went to go see this movie. I heard it was really good, and it was really good. This movie both met my expectations and impressed me with other parts that what I feel like must have been like for the filmmakers behind the camera once they fell at my age, making the movie that honors what they love and doing it fantastically. When I first saw the trailer for this movie, which I think I only ever saw it once, I wasn't really interested. The trailer didn't make me think it would be as clever as it was once I went to go see it, but there were other reasons. I wasn't familiar with the Scream movies until a week ago, maybe 2 by now when I'm filming this. I of course heard of the series and many iconic things about them, but I only actually sat down and watched them last week, well, 2 weeks ago, which were just the first 2 I watched, actually. I only watched the first 2, and I watched a recap video for 3 and 4, since I heard those were the bad ones, which, at least for free, I think was the smart choice, but luckily I think you probably only need to see the first 2 movies. Actually, maybe just the first, or maybe none. I'll go into this later. But yes, this is Scream 5, released in January, to critical acclaim, considering it is a January movie, let alone a January horror movie. After hearing how good it was, which wasn't what I expected, I decided to finally watch the first 2 movies and watch this one. For those who don't know, Scream from 1996 was a slasher film that commented on horror movies, which didn't necessarily mean being a parody film, and I'll get more into this later, but while it poked fun at slashers, it still stands on its own as a good slasher movie. It was directed by one of the great filmmakers, Wes Craven, who also made the sequels, and didn't return for this one due to passing on, which is a shame. But luckily, this film was given to people in the right hands. Radio Silence. This is a group of filmmakers who made Ready or Not a couple years ago, and now they get the honor of making a Scream movie, so I'm sure someone's happy. The movie is directed by Matt Bentinelli and Tyler Gillard, while written by Guy Busick and not Radio Silence member James Vanderbilt. By the way, when you're done watching this movie, just look up James Vanderbilt on IMDb, and you'll find a fun Easter egg about this movie, so I'm just going to say this now, but only after you're done watching this movie. And I'll just say this, yes, I'm a bit late talking about this, and I don't know what I'll have to do to say about this compared to other people, but this is still my opinion, so let's see what's new and what's familiar, which is probably a good way to transition to what this movie is actually about. So yes, this is technically Scream 5, but it's just called Scream, which is a requel movie, which is something they actually call movies like this in the film. You know, like Star Wars, The Force Awakens, Jurassic World, Candyman, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Halloween, 2018, Terminator Dark Fate, Spider-Man No Way Home. Or does that one count, actually? Or no, that one would count the most, since it is actually literally both a reboot and a sequel. My head hurts now. So this is a movie where we have new characters to the series, but old ones come back too. So what is the story that brings them together? Well, I'm not going to go into really any spoilers, so I'll work around this as best I can so I can talk about what I want to talk about. Basically, it does start off with how one of these movies would start off, but a couple of things are different to this formula, and this sets off one character returning to Woodsboro named Sam Carpenter, played by Melissa Barrera, with her boyfriend Vince, played by Kyle Gallner, to find out about the return of the Ghostface Killer. They talk to the friend group, played by a cast of actors you might go, didn't I see that one person and that one other thing I saw them in? This also leads to return characters from the original, such as Dewey Riley, played by David Arquette, Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox, and Sidney Prescott, played by Nev Campbell, in a race against time to figure out who the Ghostface Killer is this time, and make sure the cycle ends once and for all, which, again, not spoiling anything, this movie will truly be the end to any Scream movies moving forward, but maybe that's not for the reasons you might think it is. Or maybe you do know and you already saw it. I am, like, very late to this review, okay? So, what makes Scream work? It's a Scream movie. Whenever you hear most people criticize these movies, it's that while they commentate on the tropes that people would do in their films, they don't necessarily avoid them. They do the trope they would make fun of, and I get people who wouldn't like this, but that doesn't make it bad. It just doesn't have to be those people's things. And I hate people who hated this movie just for that reason only. Seriously, it annoys me. Like, they shouldn't expect that out of Scream 5. there are worse things in the world to get mad at, so I think I should move on. I'm sure, I don't know if this is something anyone else has ever said. What the Scream movies are is that they are characters put in situations where they might be destined to become what others expect of them, and it's left to these characters if they become these cliches, or they'll be able to overcome them, and this movie is no exception. I really did like off the bat when characters' backstory is revealed as soon as possible, since it's supposed to be a mystery, but it's revealed very quickly. I'm glad they don't use it as a red herring. It's used for real character development. That ties into what I said I like about these movies, following expectations, and this movie probably does that thing great in every other department. These characters know the cliches and they think they are smart for knowing it, but they don't really show it. And then honestly, maybe I'm sure what was going to happen. There's this one scene where one character just is walking around his house and the music plays and stops every time a jump scare could happen. It is humorous how I'm just waiting for this guy to be killed, but I really don't know when he will be. Speaking of the characters, how are they? New and old. The new characters are great, and I'm just going to go off script right now to say this because I did see other people's reviews. They said they didn't like the new characters as much as the old characters, but I did really like the new characters a lot, actually. I really liked the connection between the sister characters, where I was really hoping things would patch up, and they easily have both the best scenes together, and possibly the best performances. But maybe that would rival the returning characters, which, without singling out which one at risk of spoilers, after a huge loss, he or she does an amazing breakdown, and you feel the emotion. These movies always felt weirdly realistic enough where someone died. I felt like someone died brutally, and maybe it's because I saw it on a big screen, but this was the most effective it felt here. I guess I'll go into my criticism with the movie, but make note, it's very little. I'll say this, while this is a horror movie, yes, this isn't really that scary. I'm not really that good at being scared by slasher movies because I might flinch, but I don't think I've ever been too scared from a slasher film to finish it. I guess I've been more scared with psychological horrors, which it was entertaining, where they do the homage to the original opening scene of the first film, and this time the girl on the phone says her favorite scary movies are the Our House horror films I would like, and the reason she says why, in my head I'm like, yeah, that sounds like me. Speaking of homages, I did say this was a requel, right? So yes, in the movie they do recreate some of the original scenes or have Easter eggs and so forth, like most of the new characters have names of horror film legends. They literally pass Elm Street. Hell, even as cameos I wasn't expecting, but I'm so glad it's here because like the people who have cameos, the people who made this movie, it feels like everyone who made this movie loves Scream. The reasons why this movie is made and what they commentate on with modern films, just like how they commentate on horror films or sequels beforehand. And with requels, yes, it does not really subtly, but like the kills, it's brutally honest for the right reasons, and it again ties into what I like about the Scream movies. This is a really well made and well written film. It has a lot of true fans, I would presume, would want to see in this. And if it's not something you're into, fair enough. If there's any criticism of these movies, I do agree on it's that, yes, it's always so overcomplicated who the killer could be. Everyone is a suspect, but to such an outlandish degree, like Clue, it could be anyone. So, it could be any one of them. And how am I supposed to guess properly? Then again, these movies are definitely not about the mystery, or aren't really about being as scary as other horror movies. I think, at least. It's more about the love they have for horror films that came before, and this new Scream movie has the love given to it old fans probably gave to the other movies. There's more I could say, but I don't want to spoil anything, and I do recommend people go see this movie. It subverts what they might expect from a requel of Scream while still meeting the expectations of what people want from a new Scream movie, and I'm glad I went to go see this in theaters and left with a smile screaming on my face. I give Scream 2022, Scream 5 to Scream 2022. I give this new Scream movie an 8.5 out of 10.